Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. It's 9 o'clock. You're here, I'm here. We've got a good crowd out there, so I thought we may as well kick off on today's webinar. And I'm really looking forward to this one. Have been for a while. It's the first time I was speaking to Dean a few months ago about running it. I still remember, I think it was about 2.5 years ago, I sat down to have a coffee with Dean in Martin Place, and he told me that he was moving to London. And I naturally assumed that in moving to London, he'd be sort of exiting his advice business or taking a break. But no, he then shared with me the news that he was going to continue running it from London. And since then, over the past 2 or so years, he's done it and absolutely killed it. So I'm really looking forward to going deep with him on the whole story behind it, how he came to that place, how he got it to work, and lessons learned moving on. So we're going to kick off in just a minute. For those of you who are Audere clients, I want to give you a quick run through of what's coming up this month. As you guys would know, this month is Sleep July. So we're nearing the end, but this month has very much been about ways to achieve more by doing less, either through increasing your delivery, finding smarter ways to engage clients, and a whole bunch more. We've already been through and done a webinar called the Momentum Model, which if you haven't been onto the members site and checked it out, that's all about how to build a high-touch service offer, but do it in a way that doesn't put pressure on your business. So that's now all uploaded on the members site, so go and check it out, including the worksheet and the tools, etc. For those who attended the Teflon Mastermind session, thank you very much for your participation. It was a great session. By now, I'd hope you're back in your businesses and you're starting to implement some of those things that we worked on in order to make you a bit more Teflon, remove some of the friction that's stopping you from getting the things you want done this year. Next week, for those of you who are really into the boardroom stuff, as I am, next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, we're getting together to have another sort of open-ended webinar where we put up some problems, opportunities, and use the power of peer group accountability to solve some of those problems and walk out there with fresh insight that you don't already have. And final news from us, the new members site is up. Looks so much nicer than the old one. I've already had some feedback from some of you guys, so thank you very much. So if you haven't got your login ID and you haven't checked it out, please jump in there, because there's a whole bunch of good stuff ready to go. And finally, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing a new sort of downloadable, which is called the Productivity Cheat Sheet. And I know a lot of firms that we've spoken to recently have spoken about challenges in getting more productive and more efficient. So I did a bit of work and came out with what I know are the 5 best, I'm showing my inner geek, but real life cheat codes or hacks to increase your firm's productivity. And we reckon all of these together are going to get you about 30% more productive, which is generally about a day and a half a week. So it's well worth checking that out when it comes out. And that's available to everyone. But, and finally, early next month, we had such good feedback on the webinar we ran on the playbook system, which is about how to create an operating system that gets your team working together better. We're going to run it again. So keep an eye out for that in either the first or the second week next month. And everything will be in our monthly snapshot when it comes out at the beginning of the month. Right. That's enough from me, because we're going to talk through the main event. And as I said, about 2 years ago, Dean came to me and said he was going to go to London and still run his advice firm. And for those of you who came to XY Advisor, you'll know what a great story this is. What we're going to do is I'm going to sort of really go deep with Dean on a whole bunch of stuff from the background as to how the opportunity came around, how he planned it, the early days of getting this remote relationship to work, how he perfected the delivery and what he's using now, including the impact it's had on his business and the next steps. I'm keen to get your questions, and we're going to have a bit of a Q&A at the end. However, if you can open the question box along the way, open it right now. This is the way that I want you. If you've got questions along the way, drop them in the box. I will do my very best to pop them in along the way if they're relevant. If not, I'll revisit them at the end so you can get your questions answered. So just to make sure the tech is working, that you're seeing on your screen what I can see. If you have just seen the slides, change a few times and they're full screen, and you're there and the technology is working and you can hear me, just go to the Q&A box and type in good to go or G2G, whichever you prefer. That'll let me know that everything's working. You found the Q&A box and we're set to go. I've got a good to go from Matt. Kathy says good to go. Matt Bruce says good to go. Lindsay, Alan, good to go. Matt, excellent. We're on and we're running. So it's with my great pleasure, I would love to introduce you and possibly reintroduce some of you to Dean Holmes. He's going to talk a bit about how he basically ditched the office and improved his client engagement anyway, he's going to talk a lot about the tech essentials along the way, how to position the engagement, change the engagement with clients, and finally, all the lessons that he's learned along the way. So let me just pull Mr. Holmes. I'm not going to make a stupid Sherlock Holmes joke. Dean, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Get you off. Have I got your video going? We have.
Yes.
Mate, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Excellent. And so it'd be afternoon over there, right? Or evening?
It's actually, you can say good morning to me as well. It just went past midnight.
Lovely. Well, mate, thanks very much for getting up, by the way.
That's all right.
I understand it's been a cracker of a day over there.
Yeah, look, it's London's had its 2 days in a row, or 2 out of 365 days that are above 30 degrees, and so everyone is just absolutely losing it here. So they can't no one can travel on trains, no one can walk around the streets. It's just it seems to be too hot for everyone. As we know in Sydney, a 30-degree day is quite normal in summer.
That's kind of early winter here, I think.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm jealous of you, because I know that when it comes to summer in London, they are without doubt the best 3 days of the year. So enjoy them.
Yeah, will do.
Mate, thank you very much for your time today. I know we've been talking for a long time, and you gave this great talk at XY at the tail end of last year, and also, I believe you did a webinar recently. So I really appreciate you coming on board and sort of sharing some of the things that you've learned, because it's been a glorious experiment, isn't it?
It has. When I first started the experiment, to use your words, I had no idea exactly how it was going to work, if it was going to work, what things I needed to do or learn that I didn't already know. But the situation as it presented itself meant that I went and I had to learn along the way. So let's talk a bit about background, because I guess one of the things that I often get suggested by advisors is just because it works for someone. I only see a slide of Dean and you. Let's actually turn that slide off. Thank you very much for the feedback there, Kevin. Let's turn that slide. Stop share. Okay, cool. There we go. That should be better. We should be able to see Dean's face, which is kind of better. Okay. A lot of things advisors say, look, that works for me, but he's different or he's special. I'm going to use the Zappos Tony Say question that he always asks at people's interviews. Mate, on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? Oh, probably like a 7. And answering that, putting a context to the number, is that I probably have some weird interests and sort of passions about random things, which lets me learn different and new things quickly. So I'm interested in, obviously, as you are interested in the tech side of the world. I know and understand that, which is quite interesting. I look at airplanes and efficiencies of why people carry two and 3 bags to get on an airplane, and why airplane companies don't just let you put the bags in the hole. Just random stuff that fills my day, and I talk to myself. Nice, excellent.
I once worked with a gentleman who ran a virtual airline. So they used to get on and do flight simulator for 4 hours in the evening, and then they had a whole airline. So it's interesting where interest in airline stuff tends to go.
Mm.
What do you think that's?
And I've been flying a lot over the last 2 years, so it's a part of it can be frustration as well.
What part do you think that analytical side, or that that deep sort of dive, has had on you doing this?
Look, it allows me so not to give up. So I actually have a focus on getting things done, finding a resolution, learning whatever I need to do to make it work, or to get the outcome. And so that's been sort of the mantra of what has happened over the last 2 years, just to make things happen at the end of the day.
Cool. So give me a bit of the history of you in financial planning, as to how you've got to this point.
Yep. Okay. Well, I first started at the Commonwealth Bank in ComSec doing share trading. So that was literally on the phone doing buy and sell trades and things like that. I got out of there after about 18 months. Had a go at a small boutique financial planning firm. It's much larger now, called Announcer. I learned a hell of a lot there, but at the time Announcer was growing and they were doing some cold calling and things like that, which I just couldn't do. It wasn't within me. And so I went and got another job at another small boutique firm. I've never been back to corporates. That was about 10 years ago that I got that job. At that job, I met my now business partner, Paul Barrett, and we worked together for 2 years as I was an associate advisor, he was an advisor. And at the end of that 2-year period, I essentially decided that I was more interested in running my own practice, being my own advisor. And so we decided to go out and start our own business together. So that is, we've just passed our 8-year anniversary as at 30 June.
Cool.
As having the business.
And for those who aren't familiar with the business, give them a bit of an overview of what Absolute Wealth is all about.
Yep. So we're independent. We have our own AFSL. The type of advice that we do is we give high touch strategic advice. So we do the full spectrum of advice, all the way from beginning with cash flow, estate planning, asset ownership, insurance, investment strategies, and retirement strategies. The thing that we do in addition, I suppose, is we have the attitude that we just get everything done for the client. And so that has meant we've done some interesting and random things, but we're involved in clients' businesses, in how their business transfers into their personal wealth. Some of my clients have property overseas. I've bid at auctions for clients. I've done all sorts of different things in the context of, at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing for our clients, and we're not saying that we can't help them with a certain thing. So we project manage all of their affairs to get the right outcome for them for the long term.
Just on a slight sidetrack, I'm doing a lot of work with businesses at the moment on, how far their offer should go and what their scope is. And a lot of businesses, I mean, you guys are obviously a complete done for you offer, as opposed to, you do it and we do it with you. What do you think are the dangers or the things you need to watch out for when you're delivering that done for you offer, as opposed to, having something where there's clear scope?
Yeah, look, this whole concept of scope creep, I suppose, at which I suppose the legal and accounting firms have sort of worked out over the years that they have quite a structured engagement agreement, and they will only work to those letters. And if anything goes outside of that scope, well, then you'll get a separate bill. The premise that we come from is that we're a relationship business. Our clients have been with us for more than the 8 years of the business, but we're intending to have long-term clients. And so what I always talk to my clients about, and the way in which we run, is that there'll be good years and bad years. And some years I will do extra work for you, Mr. Client, but I'm not going to come and ask you for extra money. But in return, there'll be a year where I probably don't do as much work as I may have done the year before, and I'm not going to refund any money. And so that conversation just allows me to, or allows the client not to fear calling me. I don't want people not to call me because they think they're going to get another bill. And I think sometimes that happens with other professionals, is that there's a bit of I'll just do it myself because I don't want to call my solicitor and have to pay $300 an hour for them to look into that. Yeah. And so I just want my clients to call me, because then we can do it right the first time and not tell me at their annual review and then I have to fix it later on.
Cool. And I also presume that your fees are appropriate and you're not doing $1,500 advice and that sort of stuff either.
No, correct. Okay. Yeah.
Matt Bruce just quickly wanted to ask, do you outsource certain areas that you're new to, like auctioneering, or do you do it yourself?
Look, the auctioneering one was a known outcome that the client, it was a specific case where the client had badgered the real estate agent a little bit too much, so he couldn't be the one that was auctioning that day. So it wasn't as if I was making price decisions or anything like that. And I've only done that twice. Understand.
So talk to us about how this move to London. What are the circumstances? How did it come about?
Yeah, well, it was external shock, I suppose, but obviously a good external shock. I got married, and my wife, she works for Unilever, which is an international company. Everyone would know it. Essentially, she got an opportunity to leave the Sydney office and come to the UK office. The timing of which we had thought about and discussed for sort of a few years before we made this move, and literally in the space of it was around 5 weeks, they found a job for her in London, made an offer, packed our house up, and flew us across to London in about 4 or 5 weeks. So it was something that we wanted to do, but it was an external shock that actually pushed us to come across to London.
Okay. And what was your thinking around it to begin with?
The thinking was that it was going so I wear two hats. Obviously, personally, I was excited because it was going to be a phenomenal opportunity, and that opportunity is just to live in Europe for a couple of years to see and travel this part of the world, which, you know, as a even if you're holidaying 3 weeks a year into Europe, you don't see as much and get the feeling for Europe as you do when you live here.
Yeah.
I still say Europe as opposed to Great Britain and across the ditch. But the context is definitely that we did it personally to come and explore. And the other advantage that came from that is being a business owner, I had some flexibility on how I could structure my working situation to allow Anshika to work in the UK and me to continue growing and running my business.
So just to lay it on the table, what was did you go over there an expert on how to do this? Had you been remotely engaging clients before? What was your previous experience? My previous experience leading up to leaving is probably I had participated in a few webinars, such as we're doing now. And so I knew the concept of a video meeting and screen sharing existed. But besides that, I had nothing. I didn't know any of the technology, how it would work, what would happen until we really left and started testing it after I'd left. Nice baptism of fire. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the pre-planning. So you're getting ready for this move. I know it happened pretty quickly, but let's start talking about the research into the tech. How did you digest it all?
It was, for me, it wasn't so one of the contexts is that I don't stay here permanently. So everyone should understand that I come back to Sydney probably every 3 to 4 months, and I've done that consistently over the last 2 years. And so the tech and the pre-planning and things like that were not as important on day one, because I already knew at day 90 I was going to be back in Sydney. Okay. And my first trip was actually closer than that anyway. So I knew the tech would be there for me to do it, and I knew if something was not working right, I would actually come back to Sydney anyway. And so there wasn't a huge amount of pre-planning that went in. That being said, I knew and still use today GoToMeeting for staff and team meetings and client screen sharing. It's exactly the same as what is pretty well exactly the same as Zoom that we're using now. Yep. And I knew Skype, and Skype is I think it's probably one of the oldest tools for phone calls internationally, but it actually works really well. And what you find when you start to use it is that everyone knows what Skype is. And so by them knowing what Skype is, it means that they can comfortably know how to download it, how to register, how to make it all happen really, really quickly and easily. So that was all. The other thing about Skype is that I've got an Australian landline number through Skype. And so anyone can call me for the cost of a local call. You can call me, and it rings on my Skype phone here in London. So I'm very contactable using Skype as the basis of the technology. Okay. And what do you find with
I'm really interested in the landlines because I haven't used Skype for landlines for a while because the quality was always a bit funny on the phone calls. What are you finding now?
It's awesome. I honestly can't fault it. Anyone could call me now and I could talk to them on my mobile through Skype, the app, and you wouldn't know that I'm in London.
Right.
Okay. You can even call my mobile, which then diverts to my Australian mobile, diverts to Skype, which then rings on my phone here. Yeah. And you'd think I was around the corner from you. So
Ruben's just asked a really great question. You know, how do you get past your Skype phone ringing at 3 a.m. in the morning?
Well, you just have to put it on flight mode.
Yeah, there's a great little button that people don't know about on your iPhone called Do Not Disturb, which is fantastic because it blocks all calls unless someone calls you sort of twice in a short period of time. It's good.
Yeah. So you've got to switch off, which we'll get to, and when we talk about time zones and things like that, I'm sure.
So I want to ask you, how did you position this with your clients before you left? What were the conversations like?
Yeah. So the conversations. Well, I was obviously a little scared leading into it because this is my business, and with Paul and I have built it over the last 8 years. I didn't want to do anything that was going to just destroy the business and the clients. And so, just like you start all projects with the biggest hurdle or the biggest rock, I started the conversations with my biggest client. So I went and saw them and sat down, told them about what was happening, what the opportunity that Anshika and I had. They were very happy and supportive. She does want me to come back to Sydney. Don't get me wrong, but both of the clients were happy and supportive. And so what that gave me is the confidence that if my largest client was going to be okay with the concept, I had the idea that everyone else will be okay as well.
Okay.
And so I essentially just worked down the list from the top to the bottom. I didn't have time to talk to everyone before I left because we moved so quickly. But some of my clients I meet face to face only once a year and talk to them on the phone or via email. And so honestly, I was communicating with some clients who didn't know that I was in London, and they didn't see any service difference in the way in which I responded to emails. So clients at that time had no idea. By the time I made my first trip back, pretty well every client was then aware of what I was doing.
Can you just quickly paint me a picture? And Shireen, I've got your question. I'll come to that. Just paint me a picture of what was when you phone up and a client goes, Dean, where are you?
Well,
I'm in London. They go, Dean, what do you mean you're in London? Give me the words.
Well, it's actually it is. I can remember one conversation with some clients that I am going to talk to tomorrow as well, and it was like that because I was intending to tell them earlier. Time meant that I couldn't go out and see them before I left, and then they had an urgent need to talk to me the month I landed in London. So they were on the list of I would love to go and talk to them face to face. And then what happened is I got to London and I was like, these people need to talk to me, so I need to tell them on the phone. And so I just told them what had happened. And I said, I'm in London. I said, I am in London at the moment. My wife and I, or Anshika and I, depending who knows Anshika, my wife and I have got an opportunity. She's got a promotion across here in sorry, I got distracted by someone saying I need batteries for my clock.
We spoke about that yesterday.
Yeah. I did look on the back. There's no batteries. I was going to put it in, so everyone knew it was after midnight. So I just told the clients exactly what happened, that we've got an opportunity to come across here, that I'm intending to come back to Sydney every few months. As you can tell, we're talking on Skype, and we're able to do screen sharing and video calls, which they're all comfortable with. Yep. And it just went from there. And the most important thing is I solved their problem. So they got confidence immediately that me being in London didn't actually impact the service or the outcome that that client needed.
I think I've been doing increasing amounts of online coaching, and I think the same is true. If you can deliver the result that clients want in that form, or even in less time than you would normally, that's what matters, not the form or the medium. A couple of questions from the crowd I want to sort of jump through. Shireen Churchill wants to know, when you return to Oz every 3 months, how long do you stay, Dean?
About 3 weeks. About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks
on average. Yep.
Beautiful. Ruben wants to know how did strategic alliances react?
Interesting. So as a business, most of our strategic alliances are at our business level. So for anyone that knows Paul and Dean, we are sort of Paul and Dean, not Dean and we're a team. And so for most of our strategic alliances, they've stayed strong because Paul's been there day to day to massage and look after the relationship. But in addition to that, because I'm coming back, I'm able to see those people as well when I come back to Sydney. So it's a good balance.
Okay.
But definitely some of the personal sort of referral networks that I may have had have definitely dropped off a little bit over that period. But as a business, we've still maintained the important ones that we had when I was in Sydney.
Beautiful. Okay, cool. And Matt Bruce, you might talk about this later, but you can answer this now, which if you prefer. He just wanted to know about what's the team behind you? Do you have someone else to absorb the issues?
Yeah, so I have. So this is an interesting part about the differences in the fact that we're a business versus I'm a one-man band financial advisor. So as a business, we have Paul and myself as the majority owners, but then we have two other advisors, Stella and Shane, in the office in Sydney, and Kevin. And so we're a team of 5. And so the small problems get solved by them potentially while I'm asleep. So I use this example of someone has to open the mail. It's not the most exciting job. Obviously, Australia Post delivers very slowly, but at the end of the day, someone has to open the mail, and use that as the example of there are things that need to be done in Sydney that someone has to do. And so I have a team of, there's 4 other people that are in our office in Sydney that are helping keep things turning over whilst I'm asleep. Okay. So, and to follow on from that is that as I'm awake now, I'm always awake during about 50% of the business day.
Sounds like about normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The obvious one thing we haven't covered off is, and I have a funny feeling Paul's on the line here, but how did your business partners react?
Yeah, well, Paul was aware of the potential of this probably I think maybe about 3 or 4 years before the event. And Paul has been incredibly supportive, and the context for where he was coming from is that Paul spent 2 years living and traveling in London when he was younger. So he's a little bit older than me, but when he was younger, he did something similar to what I was doing. And so he had an amazing experience. And so when he knew, as Paul is my friend, as a friend, he said, you should go and have that experience because I had the experience and it's amazing. So as a friend, he's been incredibly supportive. As a business partner, he's also been incredibly supportive. And so it was something that we just had to solve along the way after it happened. There was some pre-planning, but you can't pre-plan everything until you're in that situation. Absolutely.
It sounds like, I don't want to steal your thunder, but it sounds like a lot of success of this was just being open about the fact that this was something you personally wanted to do. There was stuff in your life that was going on and it was just an opportunity. And
correct.
Letting clients sort of fit in with that and make them realize that you're still going to get the same value, but the delivery mechanism is going to switch because of the cost that's going.
And for me, it was really easy to tell an honest story because my clients, go on a bit of a journey with me anyway. So they know about me personally. And so they knew that I got married. They know who Anshika is. And so when I tell them the truth and the story of what we're doing, they completely understand it because they relate to the people.
Absolutely. That's excellent. We just did a Teflon master. We did at our workshop, a Teflon masterclass, and there's this quote from George Bernard Shaw I absolutely love, which is, the reasonable person adjusts themselves to match the world. The unreasonable person changes the world to suit themselves, and therefore all progress depends on the unreasonable person. And I think a lot of advisors I work with, they're getting this idea that they have to do certain things, they have to work a certain way, or they have to dress or talk a certain way. And if that's going to make you unhappy and it's going to create a business that you don't want, or is going to stop you doing the things you want, then there's no way you're going to be at your best. There's no way you're going to be delivering the way you want to deliver. And sometimes it takes that willingness to go, do you know what? I'm not going to do that in my business in a year's time, or I'm going to do this in my life and still be able to do the same thing. And I think it's a powerful thing to get hold of, whether you're in a situation like yours where you're head down that way through external forces, or you just wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to do things differently.
And we're seeing lots of things like that. Like, it's gone are the days where you had to have your office with a view of the harbour, or you had to have a very large meeting room, or you had to have, a reception and a huge sort of fanfare when a client came into the office. There's all these things that the old school probably thought that clients valued. But then if you ask them, they don't really value them as much anymore. They just want the answer. Yeah,
absolutely. A couple of questions from the crowd, which I think are relevant. Christiana wants to know, are your online meetings more efficient? And was there a large education piece for your clients on how to use the technology?
Yep. So in relation to efficiency, small talk is a little bit more difficult probably on a Skype meeting. So there's probably a little bit, you get to the point a little bit quicker compared to if you were in sitting at a coffee shop or sitting in your office. So it probably is a little bit more efficient. But that being said, the small talk and the chat ahead of time is still important, because that's what's building your connection with the client. Yep. Technology wise is, the main one I still use to talk to people is Skype and GoToMeeting. And so for Skype, the biggest takeaway I had is that everyone knows someone pretty well that is traveled overseas now. And so whether it's my older or younger clients, everyone knows what Skype is, and they know the concept of what it is. And so that made it very easy to get people involved in the on the tech side.
Yeah.
And then if we're doing a GoToMeeting, it's pretty easy to click a link in the email, and everything else, you just keep ticking yes and it opens up. So most of the time I didn't have a problem at all.
Not even with the mic, the camera?
With the what, sorry?
The microphone and the camera, that whole, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah, there's been a few things like that, but the GoToMeeting gets around it because everyone can just dial in on their phones.
Yeah.
So worst case scenario, it's call a phone number, put in a conference code, and you're connected. And so everyone has done that once in their life.
Yeah.
And so that's probably, and lots of the professional clients that I have been doing video conferences or phone conferences for the last 20 years. So it's not a new concept for them.
Yeah. Hey, I want to talk a bit about sort of getting used to the system, the early days, the bumps along the road. But Shireen Churchill has asked a really good question that I wanted to pop on the table as well. Kathy, I've got your question as well. Is that harder? We haven't got around to the new client thing, but is it harder to build rapport with new clients in an online situation?
So surprising, I'd have to say surprisingly no, but the context is that I'm always if I'm talking to a new client, I'm also preparing them for my first face-to-face meeting that I'll have with them. And so sometimes a little bit of the rapport building happens in that face-to-face meeting, but at least I need to do some on the phone call or on the Skype call. to make it happen. And there's a few different ways how that has worked for me. One, for example, is I actually had the client or the prospect client come into our office in Sydney. So they came into the office in Sydney, they sat down with Stella and Paul in the meeting and met both of them face to face. And then I dialed in on a go-to meeting on the TV in the boardroom. And so that in itself built rapport just because the clients understood that we were a business, that we had an office, and that I was based overseas as well.
Yeah.
And so that worked from that perspective. We talk quite well on the phone to people. And so that's really what I work on, is that at the end of the day, if you just have a nice conversation with someone on the phone, you'll build rapport.
Absolutely. Cool. Kathy Hickey wants to quickly know, it's another good question. In terms of you mentioned how important the team was. She want to know, does that include admin and paraplanners, or do you outsource those?
No, we're all internal at the moment. I say at the moment because we will be outsourcing some of those functions, but all of that is in our office at the moment.
Do you think you could do this with an outsource model?
Yes. Depending where the outsource was located, it'd actually be more convenient, because if they're in Asia, you'd actually be able to talk to them later on in the morning, which would be quite convenient for me. So yeah, it's just managing it. It's managing a team. You would manage a virtual team from Sydney. I could easily manage a virtual team from London. There's almost no difference besides time zones.
So let's talk about sort of getting used to it. What was the hardest thing to adjust to, either for yourself or for clients?
Well, for the time zones was the initial learning, I suppose, and getting used to. So there's two, with daylight savings, it makes a difference. So at the moment, my day, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start work pretty well straight away, which is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I've got that window from 2 till 5:30 to do any business related calls and conversations with people. The other positive that comes from it, from my time zone, is that there's lots of clients out there that are more than happy to talk to me at 8 p.m, 9 p.m, 10 p.m. because of their day, and that's really convenient for me. So it's sort of 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And so it's actually opened up a greater flexibility for some of our clients to talk to me at a time of the day in which a traditional financial planner may not make themselves available.
Okay. Talk to me about batching. It just essentially breaks up my day. So I have two parts of the day, or a few parts of the day, but essentially at the moment, by about, depends what happens in any day, but by say about 10 a.m, I've finished all of my phone calls and meetings, chats with staff and chats with clients, such that I don't have another phone call or another email coming into my inbox for the next 6 hours. So it does allow me to break up my day in client related work and client related work, and also, calling the bank or calling someone or just doing stuff in business hours. And then the next part of my day moves into being able to just do almost uninterrupted work. I think if there's any one thing, even if advisors are not going to go with the online stuff, or they're not planning on moving to London for 2 years, I think if anybody was to take one thing from this webinar, it's this idea that if you can batch together your stuff, so you are at a certain period of time where you're talking to clients, and there's a certain period of time where you're deep focusing on advice or docu or whatever it is, or building your business, that is the one thing that's going to fundamentally change your productivity. There's a whole bunch of study done into the impact of interruption and disruption and all that sort of thing, but it's just such a game changer when people adopt the habits that mean, I'm literally going to turn my phone off, I'm going to turn off the internet, I'm just going to do exactly what I need to get done. and you suddenly realize how much time there is in the week that just gets wasted in transitions.
I'm sure there's some people in my office smiling right now at the end of that. Sure.
Fair enough. Right. What are the biggest mistakes you made? What are the bumps along the way?
I suppose, look, staying in touch with the team for me is the hardest, but also the most important thing, because you don't always know what you're going to talk about when you talk to your staff. But when I was in Sydney, I was always the problem solver, motivator, and just big picture. I knew sort of what everything that was going on within the business, and it's a little bit harder to be that same person from London. So it may not be a mistake that can be completely solved, but you can't underestimate if you're a certain valuable within the business, you've got to think about, if you take yourself out of the location, will what you did before still be able to be done?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was that's a learning, and that's been difficult to create the same energy and motivation and just teaching that I did within the business from over here. And
how have you overcome it?
I have not completely solved it. Okay. And I'll be back in, part of it gets solved when I'm back in Sydney, because it just gets shrunk and concentrated into those periods. But on the flip side, it's actually allowed the guys to also step up in their roles as well. So like Shane and Stella specifically have been able to take on more responsibility on their own, because there's not someone that can answer the question. So there's a silver lining to that problem, in that these guys have grown themselves significantly over the last 2 years, just based on the fact that they have solved problems before I've even woken up, which is great. That's what a business should do.
Tim Ferriss tells a similar story about, he used to, I think he was younger, he used to run a vitamin business, and he, just being a complete control freak by his own description, he was involved in everything, and the business was just going to hell in a handbag. And he ended up just sort of having a bit of a freak out, jumped on a plane, went to Amsterdam, and didn't pick up the phone for like 3 weeks, and eventually went, okay, I better clear this up. And phoned up and realized that in his absence, people had started making decisions and thinking for themselves. And he realized that he was the bottleneck. And when he pulled it out, people they didn't lean on him anymore. And as a result, he ended up writing a book called, we all know, The 4-Hour Work Week. So
4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah, funny what sometimes necessity requires and creates.
It's all right. Paul sent me an article from 1974 from the Harvard Business Review yesterday about, the context was monkeys on the back, but between employees and subordinates in delegation of tasks. So it's been around the concept has been around for a long time. It's whether it's the execution that seems to be the most difficult part.
Yeah, Chris Yenner actually put a comment. He said, this is just the ideal work week, the ideal week sort of dressed up. And you're absolutely right, Chris. A lot of these things that we're talking about they're old concepts, it's just different ways of implementing it. In your case, it was necessity that led to them working.
Exactly.
There's got so many questions lining up, so I want to sort of move on through so we can get some time for Q&A.
Yep.
Let's talk about the grey areas, because we did get a question from, let me remind myself, Shireen, about compliance issues, providing advice for overseas. Let's talk about the grey areas that sort of presented a barrier for this working.
Yeah, so the compliance issues are quirky, I suppose. Look, at the end of the day, everyone is outsourcing different things overseas, and so maybe our legislation hasn't caught up exactly to where we are at the moment. But ultimately, the advice that I deliver is delivered in Australia from Australia. We have an Australian office. We have an AFSL that's in Australia. I'm actually still an Australian tax resident, and director because of the time and responsibility that I have in Australia. And so ultimately, I'm an Australian sitting in London, and so that has meant that I'm still able to give advice. Having your own AFSL means that you don't have to go through a large compliance process to do things like this, which is obviously an advantage of being able to control our own destiny with our AFSL as well. But everything, like, there's some really interesting quirks. Apparently you can't give a PDS to a client outside of Australia. Now that's, it's really difficult for anyone to prove that I didn't give the PDS to anyone outside Australia because my email server is in Australia and that's where it got sent from. Yeah. But it's just an example of where some old legislation hasn't caught up. And just like Uber, things change and then industry changes, or you do it the other way. You petition industry to change for 10 years and then eventually it changes.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the guys I meet with regularly, he's developing an online advice tool that literally allows people to go and create their financial advice. It's called Map My Plan. Great tool if you want to have a look. But he had a conversation with Athic where they said anytime somebody came in and changed the setting in the calculator, that they were like, yeah, you have to produce an SOA. And he said, do you know how many settings that people will change in one single sitting? Like, keep it to SOA. So it's funny. It's a real sort of frontier where potentially ASIC could hold people back from doing the innovation thing. And it's that real sweet spot as to whether you push on, try things, and do it really, really carefully until the legislation catches up. Hey, let's talk about when you realized you were perfecting the delivery. Sort of what was the moment when you realized, hey, this is actually working better?
Yeah, look, the things and the learning, I suppose, and when it started working was just when I started to take on, one or two new clients remotely. That was reinforcing the fact that the concept of having virtual conversations with clients, whether I was in Sydney or Perth, New Zealand or London, it doesn't really matter, but actually doing this remote work, and clients would know you and sign up to your service and your process, etc., without actually having shaken your hand physically. It showed that it could work.
Okay. And while you've been away, let's go down to the numbers. How many clients have you lost?
I haven't lost any clients as a result of the move.
And how many new?
I haven't lost any clients. So that hasn't been a problem. I've probably brought on about 10 clients over the time, which is lower than what I probably would have done in Sydney. But that's the negative of the situation, I suppose. The positive is that Paul worked twice as hard while I've been away, and so as a business, we've still achieved what we wanted to achieve as a business. But having a way, if you need to continue to grow your business whilst you're working remotely, it's important to have some strategies on how you're going to find those new clients.
So what would you say has been the biggest impact it's had on you, your business? And to expand on that, what have you learned about your advice that you didn't know before that you did this? From
the client perspective, trust is really interesting in that the fact that you're in a different location or you're on the phone, all these things, they don't matter if the client trusts you. And so it's ultimately, the only thing you need to remember is that you need to show the client that you care, and the clients have to believe that you care. And then all of these other mechanisms by which you communicate, how you recommend things, et cetera, are all secondary to the fact that you're working in the client's best interest.
Yeah.
So from a client perspective. What else do you want me to tell you?
So what have you learned about your advice that you didn't know before, or what impact has it had on you?
Look, it hasn't. I do miss some things that I had when I was in an office with my team, and also having first meetings and drawing on whiteboards and talking to clients face to face. There is a different chemistry and energy that comes from that. So I do miss that, and I get it when I go back to Sydney, obviously, and when I return, I'll have it again. But you've just got to realize that there's some things that you enjoy in your job. Hopefully there's a lot of things, and if they get taken away from you through your choice or external forces, you've got to replace it, or you've got to manage it. And so that's what I've had to do. That I miss those things, but I can't do anything about it. But I go for a run around Hyde Park, and that's also fun.
Yeah, all the pasty white English people.
Exactly, sunbathing.
And I can say that because I was born over there, and I'm pasty white, so that's the way it works. Mate, I guess I've got so many questions lined up, so I do want to get around to those. But tell us, what's your next steps?
Look, there's a couple of things that we're doing. So I am, at some stage, this journey's coming to an end. Because Paul's listening, the journey's coming to an end really relatively soon. And I keep pushing the line out, but Shika and I will be definitely back by Christmas. And Paul will want me to say much earlier, which I'm winking at him. But so the next steps is this journey, even though I'm doing it now, is going to come to an end. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to do what I'm doing now. And so the learning has been that you can still have a Skype call or a GoToMeeting call and all these things with your client in North Sydney if you're in Sydney. And the purpose of doing that is to have a quick meeting. A video call is better than a phone call, but also you both save half an hour of going over to North Sydney, waiting in traffic, taxis, et cetera, and coming back. And so even though I'm coming back, the skills that we've learned as a business in relation to working remotely, we will continue to use. Perfect.
And let's talk about the industry. Let's talk about financial advice. Let's talk about your business. What do you see as the next big opportunity? I mean, there's robo advice floating around. There's outsourcing. There's so many trends. What do you think is in your sights?
Look, the way I think about the financial planning industry, and I compare it to the accounting industry as well. And when I look at the accounting industry compared to financial planning, the pyramid is much steeper. And so what I mean by that is that there's more people within the pyramid in an accounting firm compared to an average financial planning firm. So the partner will be responsible for a much bigger amount of revenue, but then he'll have all the people underneath him which will be delivering. And so I think that the leverage that as business owners that we need to do over time is to build the pyramid. So in my business, I don't need another Dean Holmes or Paul Barrett, but I need, as we grow and take on more clients, we need more people at the bottom. And so it's about creating the efficiency in the process for me just to see clients and almost do nothing else.
Yeah.
So I see that robo advice is a buzzword. If you put that in, you can raise about $100,000 pretty quickly. Data to start a robo advice firm. Look, it's all going to be great stuff.
Yeah.
I think more importantly with the robo advice is that I will continue to use the tools that they're building for me. Everyone is trying to build consumer facing tools. I'll use those same consumer facing tools and just charge a fee for the time that I spend explaining it to my client. I don't think that I will be replaced in the relationship side and the value add side of understanding the client's goals and objectives.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the portfolio, I probably can't charge 1.1% or 1.3% on an investment portfolio if I can get a computer to churn out a portfolio and manage it for me. And so there'll be changes in the way in which we charge our clients and the way in which clients understand the value from our service. But that's just part of, we always have to be changing. We can't be the taxi industry.
Totally agree. I mean, I think if you look at the way that firms are going to have to change the way they attract people, like most people's first port of call is not to want to have a conversation with a financial advisor, and we've got to get comfortable with that there is a route to them eventually having that conversation, because that's going to be a far more effective pull marketing strategy rather than come and have a meeting with me. And then if you can back it up with, make it easier to deliver that value, giving clients the opportunity to help themselves. And instead of having the same conversation 100 times, have one conversation to 100 people, as well as then you resource up using outsourcing and processes and systems. You end up with a scalable business model as opposed to what we've got now, which is the only way to grow it, to Chris, is either put more people in or try and find the right technology, which, let's be honest, in our industry is not a strong point yet.
No.
Hey, got some questions backing up, so I really want to go over those. Got 2 more questions for you. If people want to find out more about you, want to find out what you're working on right now, where can they go, Dean?
Look, the main website, like besides our Absolute Wealth Advisors website, which is just really about our financial planning business, the other place to find me and talk to me is LinkedIn. Obviously, you can call me on my Skype phone. And anyone's more than welcome to trial a virtual meeting with me, to have a chat. That would be fun. The other things, that's the best ways to get in contact with me. And I wrote an article about this, working remotely, probably 6 months ago when I did the XY thing. And given the 2 that I've done now, I'll probably just update that and push that out on LinkedIn as well. But happy to have conversations with people that have got questions and things like that as well.
And is there anything cool you're working on that people should know about, other than the others?
Yeah, look, the only other thing that we're working on as a business is we're moving our AFSL into a mini dealer group, I suppose. And so what we're doing is we've taken on 2 new authorized reps, and so what we're doing, which is quite interesting and a little bit different, is we're starting to find younger advisors like I was 8 years ago, who actually want to run their own practice. They can see the benefit in running their own practice. They're structured and committed to not work for financial institutions. And so we're making a business model around helping those almost startup financial planning firms with financial planning support, capital support, and structure support, to actually let some young financial advisors start out on their own from day one, instead of the current model where you work in the bank for 5 years or 10 years and then you try to get out. But the timing in which you're trying to get out is you just had a baby, and so you need the steady income, and so you can't take the risk. So we're trying to help people do it earlier.
And if people are interested in talking to you about that, same thing, LinkedIn?
Just grab me in LinkedIn, and we'll just have a conversation.
And final question from me before I go over to the rest of to everybody else. What's the one thing that you'd like to see advisors, accountants, and mortgage brokers who are on this webinar do more of? Or what would you like them to see them do first when they go down this route, or any route?
Yeah, look, the first and best test of this concept is just do one meeting that you are going to go and see the client. Just do one meeting remotely. I know you can probably get a trial of Zoom or GoToMeeting. Skype is free and has screen sharing and video anyway. So the technology is out there and it's free. And so if I was to say to do one thing, is just go and give it a try. Yeah. You can call a business associate, call someone else that's on the webinar, call Stuart, or you can call me too. Just actually give it a go, and you'll be as a test, and then test it with a client, because you'll be amazed, and you'll probably find that the client has already used it before. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, when the first time I did my first webinar, I was told by the person who said do it, he said, do it, you're going to suck, but you're going to get better. And I probably still suck, but I feel like I'm getting better. I think Tony Robbins says the same thing. He was doing, his whole sort of helping people understand it, and then realized he wasn't learning fast enough. So he went from doing 1 session a week to doing 10 sessions a day.
Yeah, builds it up.
Yeah, just go 10,000 hours faster. Mate, that's been awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. We've had so many questions coming through, so let me just go through them and just chuck them at you. From the ones that have been waiting a while, Matthew Bruce wants to ask you the question that, given your online experience, would you restructure your business if you were back here permanently? In other words, more reviews online rather than face-to-face?
Yes, I would do it, because I don't like forcing clients to come into the meeting room, to come into the office just to see me. You know, it does cost $90 to park in Sydney for 3 hours, and so who should pay for that? I don't know. Like, we all get stung with MasterCard credit card fees, but either the client's paying for it or I'm charging the client a higher fee, and I'll pay for it. So I think that the option can and will be available to all the clients that we can do a remote meeting. It's going to save so much time.
Absolutely. On that topic, would you recommend asking clients whether they'd be interested in doing it? Would you just do it and then sort of power through the objections? You just
do it. I think, like, I would just do it. Do it with the clients that you know and trust, and that are techie enough that it's not going to be an issue for day one while you get your confidence. But just like everything, it's your business, and so if you decide to change a business practice, 99% of your clients will go along with whatever you change because they trust you, and the 1% probably weren't ideal clients anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a mantra that I really like, which is better to ask for forgiveness than permission sometimes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work in certain compliance sections before, but yeah, sometimes you just need to do it and make people realize it's better before they sort of object to it. Matt Bruce asked, what technology is required? I'm finding it hard to get a good microphone. Did you want to grab this one, Dean?
Matt is finding it hard to get a good microphone.
Yeah.
Well, this I have just my headphones.
Yeah.
So I don't. But I went and got these are like Bose noise cancelling headphones, which you need to have when you travel on an airplane. They are phenomenal. You can click my Amazon link for a discount code. But they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal headphones, and that's just the microphone. I've never really had a problem with people not being able to hear me. I am quite loud though, so that probably helps a little bit as well.
Look, from my perspective, I've had people who just use the white ones, which are fine. They've got a microphone. I use one of these, which is an Audio-Technica ATR 2500. It's a USB microphone that plugs into your computer. Another one I've had my eye on is called the Blue Yeti. But I'd say, Matt, don't sweat it on the microphone to begin with. Just grab a set of headphones, the Apple. Get comfortable with the technology, and you may actually find yourself going, actually, I don't need it.
The webcam's probably more important than the microphone. And so it's really funny, but you should talk about it, is that the webcam that's on your laptop computer is probably subpar quality, and it's just not at the right angle either. Yeah. So, both of us, everyone's watching us now, you're standing up, but the camera's facing you. I'm sitting down, but my camera is above my head, facing down at my forehead. And yes, it's shiny and all those jokes that everyone makes. But this looks much better than if I was talking to you on my laptop with my head down and my chin and my double chin and all that kind of stuff. So that is just like news presenters talk on TV. You have to think about how you're going to talk and present, and look at the camera and things like that. Because if you get distracted, which everyone does, I've looked at my phone 3 times on this webinar, and it's things that you shouldn't let happen over time to create the connection with the clients. And so you probably got to get a webcam. That's all.
I think line of sight's really important. I mean, I've got a Thunderbolt monitor, so it's just kind of on top, but it's as close as possible. So what I try and do at all times is kind of line up the window so I can see Dean is as close to that camera as possible. Because if I'm looking over here and you're looking at me, it's like having a conversation on the side of my head. The other thing that I think is really important is I've actually got a light up here, because I think if you illuminate the face, you lose any issue with what's going on. And even if it's just a small light bulb in front of you, I think illumination is really
good. My webcam has like 3 little lights on it, so that's what's illuminating my forehead.
You look slightly sunburnt, actually. Okay, more questions. Let's go. We had one. Shireen, look, any other compliance issues with providing advice for overseas that we sort of touched on a couple, but any others?
Not that I've run into. Because look, most of the advice and implementation is handled in Sydney by the team anyway. So it would require, if you were completely one person overseas, it would require a little bit more thinking, and you just have those practical problems to solve as well, as about who's going to open the mail.
Yeah. Chris actually just said, can we provide a list of the suggested technology? I'm actually happy to do that. There is actually an article that I wrote with Dean's input about 2 months ago for Robeco on the Digital Nomad Advisor. So if you Google Robeco, R-E-B-C-O, Digital Nomad Advisor, possibly my name, you should get that article come up. And that sort of talks a bit about a lot of what we're talking about the setup. But I might put together a few sort of ideas. Dean, I might get your headphones actually, and we'll pop that out. I will circulate the article, Chris, no problem. Lindsay Hodgson. Hey, Lindsay, want to know what ratio of support staff to advisor do you have?
Well, there's five people in our business. Four of them are authorized reps of our AFSL. But so it's really Paul and I at the top, and then two underneath us, and then Kevin's at the bottom. That's it. Sorry, Kevin.
Just on the microphone, sorry to go back. Nobby Kleinman says, get a Logitech C930 for about 120 bucks. So I'll put those around. Excellent. What else we got? More questions. Mark Rottenstein wants to know, how do you think your processes will change when you eventually return to Australia? Will you miss some of the efficiencies you found working on the other side of the planet? We may have covered this. If we have, let me know.
Yeah, look, the only thing I'll say is that we as an office learnt, or have learnt, and are always learning about the concept of not being interrupted. And we have people wearing headphones when they're doing sort of proper hard work, or we encourage them to go into other meeting rooms and offices when they're doing this type of work. And so some of the learnings about me being able to batch work and things like that, we've implemented into the office. So I think the good things will continue when I get back.
Beautiful.
But I will answer the phone at midday. That's the only thing that I will do that. So.
Do you think you'll still get up at 9 o'clock in the morning? 5 o'clock in the morning?
I always did. I'm a morning person, so the getting up. So for half the year I get up at 5 a.m. That's not a problem at all. The other half of the year I stay awake until about 1 or 2 a.m. Because of the time zones shift and things like that. And so I find it much harder to stay awake. I did my 10 push-ups before the call just to get the blood flowing again.
Nice. I knew a guy from what's that speaking group? A Toastmasters who used to do 10 push-ups under the table before he actually spoke. So apparently it works.
Yeah. We always have, Paul and I have a thing, when you've got to make a difficult call to a client, you do 10 push-ups and then you make the call. Nice. Okay. That's a good trick. So you end up with guns and a great... You feel strong again, and it just, you take that strength and confidence into the phone call. Next thing you're telling me you go into the office and do you're a tiger face. Do you do that? Not that one. Chris, was it Chris? Yeah, you want to know what's been more effective, GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar? So I use GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting, okay, which is the cheaper version. Correct. I think it's like 40 or 50 bucks a month. Because I don't have a lot of attendees, that's fine.
I use Zoom, pretty much a clone of GoToMeeting. You don't really, unless you're going to do webinars where you have to manage pre-registration, work out whether you're going to let people automatically register or not, whether you're going to send reminder emails and all that sort of stuff, and make sure you can manage that number of people and have a barrier between participants and panelists. You don't need the webinar stuff. You just need the meeting software. And I think there's a lot of the meeting stuff which is actually free as well. Like Skype is, I'm pretty sure Zoom have got a free trial as well, or a free one. Let's have a look. Adam Holman. G'day, Adam. Want to know, have you found any tools that help with the delegation / reporting that have worked really well?
Well, we use Advisor Logic to manage our tasks. So that does a lot of our sort of task management and reporting. So there's no difference in relation to that. We have used I use Evernote as well, which is just a document and note storage, and so that allows us to share documents and to-do lists and things like that across everyone's screen. And so that's been quite effective to just tick off items or add items, you know, to a list instead of sending emails back and forth.
Okay. Ruben wants to know, how many clients do you manage?
We've got, our business has about 80 full high touch service clients. It's probably actually closer to 90 now for full service clients, and then we would have another 100 clients that are lower touch clients. So we definitely still talk to them. They're not the orphans, but they're just on a more simpler review plan.
Cool. Mate, I realise we're going over time. Are you good for time, or should we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to go to sleep after this, so it's all good.
Peter Jacob wants to know, are you able to pick up new clients that are based in the UK? Good question.
Yes and no. So I purposely didn't go out to try to find UK clients and try to give UK clients financial advice. It was a bit complicated in relation to getting me authorized and all that kind of stuff, and there was no point in me trying to build a business over here when I was here for a few years. That being said, I've got 2 clients that we're working on at the moment who live in Australia, but they both have UK issues, so UK pension, UK property, UK tax issues, and so it's actually been really convenient for me to help solve those problems while I've been here.
Fantastic. Both Shireen Churchill and someone else asked this. Actually, Shireen asked both times. Do you think you could do it indefinitely?
I think it could be done indefinitely. I don't think I could do it indefinitely. What it has allowed me to do, it's allowed me to have an amazing 2.5 years without a doubt. The other thing that it will allow me to do in the future is to have a interesting, flexible working life going forward as well. In that, I now know that I can have a 6-week holiday traveling Europe, for example, and still work, because that's my choice to still be working while I'm on that holiday. But I would still be able to do all of the work that I would do would I be in the office. And so that's the bit that that's the advantage. It can be done indefinitely. It's just my goals don't exactly match to me doing it indefinitely.
I understand. I think we've got 2 more questions just coming in. The first one is, are you able to, and do you record client meetings?
I can. I can record it through GoToMeeting. There's a Skype add-on that you can buy for like $20 or $30 that would record a Skype meeting as well. We just don't do that. We just don't do that at the moment.
Okay. Don't ever want to review your technique and.
Well, I'll review the technique from today's webinar. But no, it's not been a thing that I've worried about.
Cool. Let me ask you a final question, and then I think let's let you get your head down and get some rest because you've got to be up early in the morning. The final question was, I think Matt Meehan and also Shireen Churchill just want to do a quick run through of the technology you use, and in particular, what do you use to store and access client files? So we've already spoken about GoToMeeting. What are the other essentials?
Well, we have a server in Sydney, and so I connect to that via VPN, which means that I click on the Finder by computer on the computer, and I access all my client files.
Okay.
The UK has incredibly fast internet, and so compared to Australia, so it has very fast internet. So actually, the time in which for me to access a file from here compared to me accessing it from home to my server is exactly the same. And so that's how I access and store client files. So nothing is stored here. It's all stored in Australia. And the same with our email server. It's in Australia, and it's just basic Outlook. That's nothing special. Skype and GoToMeeting and Evernote. But I've only been using Evernote for the last 3 months, so it's not something that I've used for the whole time. But it's an excellent tool as well. And that's it. It's pretty simple from a tech side.
Yeah, I don't think you have to have a lot of tech, and I think often people drown themselves in tech. And I think the rule is you got to look for tech that makes things better or easier, or just don't use it at all.
Correct. We use that thing called Microsoft Excel a lot as well, and Chrome. That's it. So pretty simple.
Chrome's got so many add-ins as well that you can pop in and just make things easier. So yeah, it works well. Let's leave it there. Dino, mate, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for sharing with everybody. I've taken a lot from it. What we're going to do is make the webinar recording available via a webpage for up to 4 days, so jump on there. Just to reiterate, if you want to connect with Dean and find out a bit more about what he's doing, LinkedIn is by far the best place to go. But I think the real call to action off the back of this is get onto it. Just start by doing one meeting and begin from there, because it's easier than you think. And in Dean's case, it's ended up being a massive success with a whole bunch of learnings from it. Final thing is, if you are one of our clients, I will see you on Tuesday for the community boardroom and everything else that's going on beyond that. Other than that, Dean, any final words? Not final as in this is the end of everything, but
no. Look, I thank everyone for their questions and participation. I'm amazed that what I've done is becoming of interest to a lot of people, and so I'm really happy to sort of share what I've done and opinions and things like that, because I think ultimately we all start financial planning businesses to give ourselves flexibility and our ideal life, and sometimes we lose track of that. And this is an example where even if you were able to do it, use it, and have a 2-month holiday with your family that you haven't been able to do before, that would be a great outcome.
Perfect. Dean, thanks very much. Thanks to everybody. Chris, thank you so much for the hand clap. Yeah, speak to you soon, and everybody have a wonderful week. Dino, sleep tight.
Will do. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.